times, and I'm not really sure exactly what all we're trying to say, but are small houses, tiny houses, also included in the R1 zone?
No, these ordinances do not address the tiny home issue. That's still being worked on, and one of the reasons is they're changing the building code to address tiny homes, and that doesn't go into effect till early next year.
Okay. That was my confusion, because I didn't kind of talked about tiny homes in the intro, but then it didn't. I couldn't find anything about it. But I agree. This ordinance, if we allow caretakers or auxiliary dwellings on property, it's a nightmare that we're going to wish we never got into. So that would be my comment.
Councilor Hicks?
I'm in agreement with my other councilmen that this is a nightmare we're stepping into. I mean, I see the purpose of it and I see the point of it, but I also see the very easy chance of the abuse of it. My only comment.
Councilor Henry?
I do just have a comment. I'd like to remind everyone that this is just changing the language so we can move on forward with the tiny housing. It seems like every time one little thing gets changed, everyone gets scared that bad things are going to happen. This is just the process in which it happens. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, what is the desired council on this item?
I would move to approve.
Okay, do I have a motion? Do I have a second? Okay, I'll second it for a vote, and then we'll see what happens. And we are going to do this as individually, and that way we can cover all four if necessary. So the first one is going to be amending the definitions. So we have a motion by, unless there's an objection, I'd rather do them all together since they are they build up on each other instead of individually. Unless there's an objection from someone to make this all four of them into one. Councilor Henry, any objection from you since you did the initial motion?
Not at all. I'd like to get this moving forward. Absolutely. That sounds great.
Okay. So the motion by Council Member Henry, seconded by Mayor Guerrero to approve the four ordinance regulating accessory dwelling units and amending Sunnyside Municipal Code Title 17 to add definitions, to add approval criteria, add to specific approved zoning districts for accessory dwelling units and accessory caretaker dwellings. Is there any debate on this item?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I don't know if this is considered debate or not, but I'm going to be a no on this motion. But I would like to see us come back as a council and grab each one of these ordinances individually and go through a workshop.
Okay. All right, hearing no debate, will the city clerk start the roll call vote, please?
Councillor Hicks?
No.
Councillor Henry?
Yes.
Councillor Restucci?
No.
Councillor or Deputy Mayor Stremler, I'm sorry.
No.
Councillor Boersma?
No.
Councillor Farmer?
No.
Mayor Guerrero?
Yes.
Okay, Mayor, you have 2 yes votes and 5 no votes.
Okay, motion fails. Thank you, everyone. And okay, sounds like we'll, Mr. City Manager, we could get these back individually for us to kind of discuss in workshops. That way we can try to hone these a little bit further and hopefully make it more appealing and not throw, months worth of planning commission work out the window. So if we'll get that in our future workshop agenda, that would be greatly appreciated.
Okay, we'll work with the clerk to find a time to do that. If I could ask for just some guidance from council, is this something you'd like to try to revisit before the end of the year, given budget activity, or in early 2021 for scheduling purposes?
I think if we go early 2021, since we're going to have really, busy next couple of months plus a short December, early 2021, I think will be the best ideal time to get this. And I'll work with you as far as the agenda, and we'll put that together early 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, up next, we have our sewer pipeline agreement. Consider authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Columbia Pumping and Construction, Inc. to install approximately 880 feet of 18-inch piping. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This request comes from the Public Works Department. Earlier this year, Council received and approved a proposal for relining some piping in our sewer infrastructure. As we shared with Council at that time, the technique is both cost effective, but also less disruptive to affected property owners along the route of the pipe. The city's budget for sewer maintenance and repairs had approximately $150,000 set aside for potential repair work this year. The earlier project that was approved came in at approximately find the amount I had that here. I think it was at approximately $60,000. And the bids for this additional work that's been identified by the Public Works crews is approximately $70,000. So the total of the two projects together come in at approximately $140,000. So it's within the department's already approved expenditure authorization for the year. And I'll invite the Public Works Director to describe a little more the issues that they found with this particular stretch of the pipe, if Council would like that information.
Thank you, Mr. Casey. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So basically what we had, the first contract we did in August actually was for, I think, about $69,000. And they haven't done the work yet. They were kind of holding off. They were busy. And then we identified this second contract here, this second section of pipe. It's actually two sections of pipe. And we decided to kind of hold off and have them come in at one time and do both contracts at once. But basically what we found was in the first contract, it goes from 9th Street to 6th Street. That section of pipe had a lot of pitting, which means the pipe is starting to come, the inside line of the pipe looks like exposed aggregate. All the lining starts to fall off. And we also have what they call a lot of I&I, which is groundwater that comes into the joints of the pipe. And that water ends up in our wastewater plants. We end up processing groundwater. So by slip lining these sections of pipe, it's one continuous sleeve. It's not jointed. It's just one. It's one sleeve, goes from manhole to manhole. So the first contract we took in before you in August was about 1,225 lineal feet. And I think that's over, I think, 3 sections between 4 manholes. And this next section we've got, or this next contract is 2 sections. And this is very large diameter pipe. It's 18 inches and it's about 880 feet of it. So this also is satisfies, Ecology is really has been having conversations with us and SCID on the fecal coliform bacteria issue that we've been chasing around Sunnyside for many years. So this also helps to remove our liability, that it's not coming from us and not from our system. It is coming from a different source. So these slip lining projects are essential to keep moving along in that project to make sure, through the process of elimination, that hopefully someday here soon we can actually pinpoint the source of that bacteria. So with that, I can answer any questions.
Thank you. We'll start with, let's see, Councilor Hicks.
Yeah, not really a question, just a comment. On my paperwork, it says 880 inches of 18-inch pipe. That's only 73 feet. It makes a lot more sense than smart being 880 feet.
Yeah, I don't see that on my agenda cover. Right, mine says 880 feet, so I'm not sure what you're.
Two quotes on mine, yeah.
Mr. Hicks
skimming
is
through.
correct. On the PDF agenda that was sent out, item C says to install approximately 880 inches of 18-inch pipe.
Oh,
But it's an expensive slip lining.
Yeah,
It's my
it's feet.
fault.
Yeah, we missed that. Sorry about that.
Okay, Councilor Henry, questions or comments?
No questions or comments. Thank you.
Councilor Restucci?
No comments, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Deputy Mayor Stremler?
No questions or comments.
Councilor Boersma?
No comment, sir.
Councilor Farmer?
It's a good project.
Okay, and no questions from me either. So what is the desire of council on this item?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion by Councilor Hicks, second by Councilor Restucci to authorize the city manager to enter into an agreement with Columbia Piping and Construction, Inc. to install approximately 880 feet of 18-inch piping. Is there any debate on this item? Being no debate, the city clerk will now start our roll call vote, please.
Okay. Counselor Hicks,
Yes.
Counselor Henry,
Yes.
Counselor Restucci,
Yes.
Counselor or Deputy Mayor Stremler,
Yes.
Counselor Boersma,
Yes.
Counselor Farmer,
Yes.
Mayor Guerrero.
Yes.
Mayor, you have 7 yes votes.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Our next agenda item is fuel tax agreement Midvale Road project. Consider authorizing the city manager to enter into a fuel tax agreement with the Washington State Transportation Improvement Board in the amount of $2,112,210 for the reconstruction of Midvale Road. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council is aware that over the last few years, the city, in partnership with HLA Engineering and through our work in the Yakima Valley Conference of Governments and the Drive Transaction forums, have put together a pretty comprehensive transportation infrastructure improvement plan. And one of the critical projects in that plan, in support of our economic development and freight mobility, is the resurfacing of Midvale Road. Midvale serves almost all of the major port of Sunnyside industrial and commercial tenants, from Darigold and Nutrien and all the way then down to Ostrom's. And over the years, the original roadbed, which is now several years old, has become degraded from the heavy traffic. That traffic is increasing. And so this project is intended to resurface, regrind and resurface that road and enable it to support our activity in that light industrial sector for many years to come. In looking at this project, the state deemed it a very worthwhile project, and the State Transportation Improvement Board in 2019 offered the city a grant of over $2 million, $2,112,210, to construct Midvale Road from Duffy up to the access ramps to I-82. The city's match requirement for the project is $234,690, and that the city will have the revenues to cover that out of the newly funded Transportation Benefit District. The state's deadline to execute this fuel tax agreement, the city has to make its commitment by towards the end of November this year, to November 22nd. However, in some recent planning discussions with state transportation officials, they are looking at the statewide funding issues and the capacity of different cities to be able to do different projects. Some other cities are not in as frankly stable a position as Sunnyside is at this point in terms of its transportation dollars. And so they're looking to try to accelerate certain projects and get things reshuffled in the queue. And they've asked us to consider executing the agreement now in the hopes of actually being able to schedule the survey work on the road this year before winter weather conditions set in, so that we can then go to bid for, complete the final design and then go to bid for the project early in 2021. And kind of take advantage of getting kind of ahead of the queue in the construction cycle. And with that, I think we'd be happy to answer any questions, but I think Council, I think that should cover most of it. And yeah.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Okay, we'll now start with Councilor Henry. Questions or comments? Okay, I'll come back. Councilor Hicks.
No questions or comments.
Councilor Boersma.
Just a comment, sir. As I recall, when the road was built or expanded to its current form, it wasn't really built to handle the heavy loads of traffic and the heavy trucks that it gets on a regular basis. I am somewhat relieved that the city manager did mention that it was going to be built to handle the loads and the traffic that it gets now. It started breaking up pretty soon after it was first laid, and I'd like to see that not happen this time around. I'd like to have a road that holds up and does in fact last for a number of years. So if we can make sure that that happens, I'd be really pleased.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Strimler.
Just a comment. I agree with Councilor Boersma. That would be my concern also. That's really all I have. Thank you.
Councilor Farmer.
Curb, gutter, and sidewalk, is that in the plans?
Mr. City Manager. The question was curb, sidewalk, and gutter.
So there is already a sidewalk on the within the city. This road runs right along the boundary of the city and the county. There is a sidewalk already in place. There are already curbs in place. There will be some improvements along the curbs and for the stormwater infrastructure. And I'll ask the Public Works Director to kind of clarify if I've missed anything there.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Casey. Yeah, real quick. Yeah, there's curb, gutter, sidewalk on both sides of Midvale, all the way from the I-82 access all the way down to Duffy Road. And like Mr. Casey alluded to, we are doing some improvements in the stormwater inlets, and those inlets are actually there's actually a little notch in the curbing to allow the road to drain into the swales that run between the curb and the sidewalk on both sides of Midvale Road. Currently there's grass, and the grass grows up and kind of blocks that inlet, so at times we get standing water in the roadway, which isn't a good thing, especially when it gets cold out. So what we're doing is we're removing that grass, and we're putting in a little concrete, a little apron, I guess, so that the water flows into a rock gallery, and there's no chance of grass growing up and blocking that inlet. So with that, I can answer any questions.
I've got a follow-up question, Mr. Mayor. Maintenance on this project, the annual maintenance or the monthly maintenance, who's going to be in charge of that?
Currently, the city works with the port, and the port is providing the maintenance along those swales.
Thank you.
Councilor Restucci.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As your state transportation commissioner and as YVCOG chair, I support this project. I'm glad that we're able to work with TIB to get it done. And I would encourage a yes vote.
Going back to Councilor Henry. Questions or comments on this item?
No comments, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, here no additional questions or comments. What is the desire of council on this item?
I move to authorize the city manager to enter fuel tax agreement with the Washington State Transportation Improvement Board in the amount of $2,112,210 for the reconstruction of Midvale Road.
I second it.
Okay, motion by Councilor Boersma, second by Deputy Mayor Strimler to authorize the city manager to enter into the fuel tax agreement with the Washington State Transportation Improvement Board in the amount of $2,112,210 for the reconstruction of Midvale Road. Is there any debate on this item? Okay, hearing no debate, the city clerk will now start the roll call vote, please.
Counselor Henry,
Yes.
Counselor Hicks,
Yes.
Counselor Bursma,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Stremler,
Yes.
Mayor Guerrero,
Yes.
Counselor Farmer,
Yes.
Counselor Restucci.
Yes.
Mayor, you have 7 yes votes.
Motion passes. Thank you very much. On to our next agenda item, disinfecting equipment, COVID-19. Consider authorizing the city manager to purchase an electrostatic disinfecting sprayer to allow city staff to sanitize and disinfect work areas to minimize the potential for coronavirus infection. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I apologize for stepping away. The custodial services just started vacuuming outside my office, so I hope there's not too much noise in the background. This item came out of our efforts to kind of look at how do we most cost effectively address the risk of infection in city facilities. At the beginning of the pandemic, when we were hopeful that we might be resolved and through it in just a few months, we had a couple of incidents where we had to have our custodial services provide electrostatic disinfection of city facilities, the most significant one being the jail. That in and of itself was nearly, I think, over a $4,000 expenditure because of the size of that facility for hitting both the jail and law and justice center. We've now actually had a number of other instances come up, fortunately all on a smaller scale, but where we've needed to conduct a more thorough disinfection of city facilities following an exposure. We've been researching this and looking at the fact that this need is likely to be with us for a while, and rather than continuing to spend kind of one-off expenditures, we can acquire the same equipment for approximately $8,500 and have it available immediately at the city's disposal for disinfection purposes for now and going forward, into the coming year. This is an eligible expense for reimbursement under the CARES grant for addressing the COVID pandemic emergency. And so we wanted to bring this option to council's attention and seek your consideration. Director Fisher has probably worked most closely with both custodial services and in researching this equipment, and so we'd be happy to answer any questions from council.
Thank you. We'll start with Councilor Restucci. Questions or comments on this item?
No questions or comments, Mr. Mayor. I do support it, though.
Councilor Boersma.
Just a question. We have people who know how to use the sprayer properly so that it doesn't turn into a mess.
Yes, we would have some training for our public works facilities crew. So, yeah.
Are you offering pro bono, Mr. Boersma?
No, I am not, but I have seen it go terribly sideways in the past.
Deputy Mayor Stremler, questions or comments?
No questions or comments.
Councilor Hicks.
No questions. We use them at the casino. I fully support it.
Councilor Farmer.
No questions.
Councilor Henry.
Just a comment, it seems like a small price to pay to keep our staff safe, so I definitely support this.
Thank you. Okay, what is the desire of council on this item?
I'd move to approve. This is Councilor Henry.
I'll
I
second.
second it.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Henry, second by Councilmember Hicks, to authorize the city manager to purchase an electrostatic disinfecting sprayer to allow the city staff to sanitize and disinfect work areas to minimize the potential for coronavirus infections. Is there any debate on this item? Okay, hearing no debate, the city clerk will now start the roll call vote, please.
Counselor Restucci,
Yes.
Counselor Boersma,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Stremler,
Yes.
Counselor Hicks, Counselor Farmer,
Yes.
Mayor Guerrero,
Yes.
Counselor Henry.
Yes.
Mayor, you have 7 yes votes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Up next, we have a mobile work computer purchase COVID-19. Consider authorizing city manager to purchase specified computers for remote work requirements during the COVID-19 pandemic emergency. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an item that we've been very pleased to be able to kind of bring to council's consideration. Under the pandemic emergency and the CARES Act funding guidelines, we are able to invest in technologies that would enable and facilitate the remote conduct of business more effectively and more efficiently. Council members have discussed previously the challenges that the legacy technologies, the aging tablet devices that the council members were issued some years ago, do not provide effective functionality in terms of screen size or processing power or the cameras and microphones or the security really to be able to function in a remote or virtual environment. Similarly, we've run into issues with some of our board and commission members who struggle because they may not have the computer equipment at home to participate effectively in these meetings, or the personal computer equipment they have is simply not suitable or adequate to these functions. And so the purchase of devices to meet this needs would qualify for reimbursement. And we know this has been, at least specifically for the council members, an interest for some time. So what we've tried to do in the materials you have before you is work with the county IT staff to identify models that would have both the processing power, the AV capabilities, the security, and the screen size to enable you to function more effectively. And recognizing that each member may have kind of a preference in terms of size and weight, IT was able to identify 2 potential models that are available under the county's procurement contracts and their procurement contracts with Dell to give you some options for those. What you'll see then is a series of options for council to consider this evening in coming to a essentially recommended authorization for expenditure authority, proposing 7 new devices for the council members to replace the tablet devices that you have, depending on the model selected, potential total estimated cost at about $15,000. We're also suggesting council consider purchasing up to 4 devices that could be checked out and used by board and commission members when they do not otherwise have a device that would enable them to participate remotely effectively. These would be available to any board or commission member for use during a meeting and to be able to review materials and so forth, and then check back in afterward. We're looking at recommending probably the slightly smaller device for those. It has 13-inch display though, which is quite a bit better than the tablet devices, and costs about $1,000 a piece. And then lastly, staff looked internally at the functions and positions that have been required to work remotely most often during the pandemic emergency, and whose existing equipment or setup has not always worked as effectively as we would have liked. And so we're bringing forward to council's consideration an additional potential 9 devices for consideration for the positions identified there, primarily in our finance and permitting arena, for a potential total of about $16,000, for a grand total authorization of 20 devices with peripherals and so forth of up to $40,000. Recognizing that we'd be looking to council for guidance and direction tonight as to specifically how many devices and for which functions. But this is the kind of the total package and options that County IT and our finance staff developed for your consideration. With that, we'd be happy to open it up for questions and requests.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. We'll start with the Deputy Mayor Stremler. Questions or comments?
I have a question. Is any of this money reimbursable because of the COVID, or is it all strictly out of our budget?
All of it is reimbursable. We are not including any devices that we weren't confident would meet the eligibility criteria for reimbursement.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Boersma?
I have no questions. Mr. Stremler asked the one that I had.
Councilor Hicks?
No question or comment, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Restucci?
Mr. Mayor, as somebody in the IT sphere, I can tell you these look like good estimates based on the information, and these are definitely systems that will meet the criteria that we need.
Councilor Henry?
No questions or comments. Thank you.
Councilor Farmer?
I guess the question is, as we consider all the boards and commissions, is 4 computers enough? And then to check out and check in, it just seems kind of here. It seems just you're going to be running over each other trying to check them in and check them out. I don't know if they need more than 4 or there are more than 4 people that need them.
That's a good question. We looked at it from the standpoint of ease of use. One of the issues with that IT brought to our attention is most boards and commissions may meet once a month or once every other month. And so the level of use for these devices is lower. In order to, another consideration is security. Any device on which we kind of issue and dedicate to an individual board or commission member, especially if the county were then to go ahead and install the email functions on it, that would require that device to be locked and secured by password only to that board or commission member. And so what we looked at was how often and how many commissioners are currently meeting during the COVID pandemic, and how often have we had issues where they struggled with the setup in their own locations. We're aware of a couple on the Planning Commission, a couple on the Civil Service Commission. Those don't meet the same dates and times, so we were hopeful this may be adequate. But if council would like to increase that, we would certainly be willing to work with that. But we thought this was a reasonable starting point.
Thank you.
Okay. What is the desire of council on this item?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion by Deputy Mayor Stremler, second by Councilor Restucci to authorize the city manager to purchase specified computers for remote work requirements during the COVID-19 pandemic emergency. Is there any debate on this item? Okay, hearing no debate, the city clerk will now start the roll call vote, please.
Deputy Mayor Stremler,
Yes.
Councilor Boersma,
Yes.
Councilor Hicks.
Yeah.
Mayor Guerrero,
Yes.
Councilor Restucci,
Yes.
Councilor Henry,
Yes.
Councilor Farmer,
Yes.
Mayor, you have 7 yes votes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Up next, we have our Department of Natural Resources Agreement. Consider authorizing the city manager to sign and execute a DNR agreement number IAA 93-099101 related to personnel expenses and wildlife mobilizations. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just a brief follow-up to council members. Either the clerk or finance director will be getting in touch with you in the next few weeks based on your last action to sit down and get your preference as to which device will work best for you. This next item, Fire Chief brought this to our attention. Last year, the council approved a interagency agreement with the state for our statewide wildfire incident mobilization reimbursements. And at the time, it was our understanding there was basically one agreement with the state. We've recently advised that in addition to the State Patrol's mobilization agreement, which governs specifically equipment, the Department of Natural Resources also requires a separate agreement for mobilizations to reimburse us for our personnel that staff the equipment. Can't really have one without the other, but it turns out you need 2 different agreements with 2 different state agencies. And so we're just bringing this back to council to match it up with the agreement you approved last year. And this came up to our attention after our fire department sent 2 personnel to the Evans Canyon fire earlier this summer. And we would be eligible for reimbursement for that. We just need to get this in place so we get the full reimbursement. Chief, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. And we'll start with our Deputy Mayor Strimler. Questions or comments on this agenda item?
No questions or comments, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Restucci?
One question for the chief. Chief, how did the vehicle respond? How well did it do?
It actually, it met my expectations. We kind of pushed it to its limit, but yeah, it did a great job, actually.
Thank you, sir.
Councilor Hicks?
No questions, comments, sir.
Councilor Farmer?
None.
Councilor Henry?
No questions.
Councilor Boersma?
No questions.
And no questions from me either. So what is the desire of council on this item?
Move to.
Motion to approve.
I'll defer to the deputy mayor.
Okay, who was the second? Henry?
Yeah.
Okay, so motion by Deputy Mayor Strimler, second by Council Member Henry to authorize the city manager to sign and execute a DNR agreement number IAA 93-099101 related to personal expenses and wildlife mobilizations. Is there any debate on this item? Hearing no debate, the city clerk will now start the roll call vote, please.
Mayor Guerrero,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Strimler,
Yes.
Councilor Restucci,
Yes.
Councilor Hicks,
Yes.
Councilor Farmer,
Yes.
Councilor Henry,
Yes.
Councilor Boersma.
Yes.
Mayor, you have 7 yes votes.
Motion passes. Thank you. Up next, we have our Legends Casino, Legends Yakima Cares Awards donation. Consider authorizing the city manager to accept the award donation from Yakima Legends Casino Hotel Charitable Donations Committee. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. It's certainly a pleasure to be able to bring an item before you to accept money into the city, especially after a meeting that's been pretty heavy on investments and expenditures on behalf of the city. So the fire department applied for this grant program earlier this year. This is awarded through the Yakima Legends Hotel Casino. And this year we received the full amount that was requested. The summary shared there covers what the chief will be using it for, and you can certainly answer any questions that you have on that. But I do want to point out one of the considerations or factors that the chief mentioned is weighed by the tribe in making these awards is whether you are providing services on the reservation. And as a result of step that the department took last year, providing coverage in kind of the Mabton area, that increased our points and eligibility under this grant program. With that, I'd be happy to have the chief answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. And we'll start with our Councilmember Boersma. Questions or comments on this item?
I have no questions or comments.
Councilor Restucci?
Just want to thank the chief for bringing this to council. I appreciate the work that he did in order to get this done. This is a great opportunity for our city, so I'm excited.
Deputy Mayor Strimler?
No questions or comments.
Councilor Hicks?
No questions or comments.
Councilor Henry?
No comments. Thank you.
Councilor Farmer?
None.
Okay, thank you. No questions for me either. What is the desire of council on this item?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Henry, second by Councilmember Boersma to authorize the city manager to accept the award donation from Yakima Legends Casino Hotel Charitable Donation Committee. Is there any debate on this item? Okay, hearing no debate, the city clerk will now start the roll call vote, please.
Counselor Boersma,
Yes.
Counselor Restucci,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Stremler,
Yes.
Counselor Hicks,
Yes.
Counselor Henry,
Yes.
Counselor Farmer,
Yes.
Mayor Guerrero.
Yes,
Okay, Mayor, you have 7 yes votes.
motion passes. Thank you, Jackie. Up next, we have items from council members. First is a council request status report. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The leadership team had provided most of its written updates at the end of September. We've not revisited this extensively since then. I will let you know on a couple of items. We do have some information. So, for example, on the parking area at the senior center, we had begun researching the possibility of using our real estate excise tax or REIT funding for that. One thing we've confirmed is that in order to allocate REIT funding, it has to be a project in our capital facilities plan under our comprehensive plan. Since we do not yet have we have an out of date or 2007 comprehensive plan, we might be challenged if we try to fund that out of REIT until we get that comprehensive plan in place. That being said, Planning Supervisor Mike Shuttleworth is working with the Planning Commission very diligently and is hopeful that we'll have a comprehensive plan in place mid-part of next year, which would enable us potentially then to move forward on this. So it's not a showstopper. It's just a factor that we've got to consider as we explore the use of those funds as a way to get this project done without having to either go for a grant or affect other city resources. So we are continuing to work on that. Public Works Director Fisher reported that on the trees, we have received the trees that will be going into the Yakima Valley Highway. Public Works staff met this week, or a meeting this week, with representatives of an organization that is also looking to place some historic farm equipment along that stretch. So we're going to be coordinating with them so that the final sites of the trees don't interfere with where they're going to be doing the farm equipment. And also, we have to make sure that we don't plant them. There are some gas and utility lines in that stretch of the greenway there. So we'll be calling out for the locates on that before we put the trees in. But that is moving forward. And we have draft ordinance for the small cell 5G. That the Planning Commission is going to be taking that matter up at their next meeting here just tomorrow night. And so we're working to try to get that addressed hopefully before the end of this year. And I don't think I have any other updates unless any of the other department heads can update on the remaining items.
Okay, so unless the council members wants to add or remove any items from our council request status, we'll move on to our next.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Councilor Restucci, go ahead and go first, and then we'll have Deputy Mayor go next.
Okay, thank you, sir. We can go ahead and remove the small cell 5G from the council status request, given that the Planning Commission is now working on this.
Thank you. We'll get that removed. And Deputy Mayor Strimler?
Yes, I believe on the fire department residency program, I believe we authorized $100,000 for it this year. Do we know how much we have spent on it so far?
Chief, do you want to speak to that? I believe at this point you have expended very few funds, mostly just for the design work that's been done to date before we go out to get the construction done. But I don't have a figure off the top of my head. We can certainly follow up with council on that if we don't have that handy.
Okay, I guess my question, the second question would be is, being we didn't use that much of it, and obviously the project is not done, is that going to be on next year's budget?
So our planning assumption for funded approved items and programs enacted by council in the 2020 budget is that those will be carried forward in the base budget for next year. So at this time, the funding for the actual residents is in our planning assumption for the 2021 budget. We're hopeful to be able to use the funding this year if we can get the quotes in time to get the construction work done out of this year's funding.
Okay, thank you very much.
Council members, any additional questions or comments?
I have one. Going back to the consent agenda on the expenses, I noted that the transaction fees, I was surprised they were that high, and I know it's based on volume. I guess I would like a breakdown on our contract on the transaction fees, and I would like to know maybe when was the last time we have looked at providers. I know I take bank cards, and I get probably 1 or 2 calls a week from providers to process your credit cards, and I have changed providers several times over the last few years because there's always somebody that will do it cheaper. So that's kind of my question. I'd like some kind of a breakdown on our fees that we are paying and how they're broken down, and I'd like to know if we've gone out for proposals to process our credit cards. With the volume we have there, we should be able to get a very good rate.
Okay. We'll follow up with finance. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. We'll follow up with finance staff and develop that information. I'm not familiar if we've done that I don't think we've done that in the time I've been here, but happy to look into that and get that information for council.
Councilor Former, do you want that added to the council request status report?
Please.
All right, thank you. We'll do that. And we'll get a report next time there is an opportunity. So thank you. Okay, anything else to add to the council request status report? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to our next section here, which is other reports, announcements, and or questions by council. And we'll start with Councilor Farmer.
You know, just to back up a little bit, I would like to know where we are at with the light and cameras for the parking lot on 7th Street. Are we going to do anything there? It looks like a third world campsite some days. The other thing, I asked the city manager regarding feral cats. What are we going to do with them? How can we handle them? Those are two more questions I've got that I'd like some answers on.
So I can speak. I know that the lighting had just been replaced at the parking lot last year as part of the Pacific Power lighting project. Director Fisher brought that up at some point. There's been no plan made to replace that new lighting at this point. With regard to the feral cats, we have looked into that, and we are aware that a resident had raised a concern about how they could get rid of feral cats, and apparently reported they attempted to trap some and got in trouble for that. Our service contract with the Yakima Humane Society calls for the animal control officer to enforce animal control laws and ordinances, including the capture and impound of animals running at large in the city in violation of chapters 6.04 and 6.08 of our municipal code, which specifically govern dogs and depredating birds. Now, the contract also requires that the society hold any impounded cats that have an ID, like a tag or a chip, must hold them for 5 days, and that cats without an ID become the property of the Humane Society. We are aware that some residents may have gotten some conflicting information about what YHS services provided, and followed up with our police chief and code enforcement officer to work directly to try to clarify what the services are that YHS will provide. The city's code is a little unclear because although it defines an animal as including a cat, it actually only addresses in the code in 604 and 608 dogs and birds. And so we're going to be looking at that a little more closely. But as I said, I do think the contract clearly indicates that there's an expectation that we're getting services related to cats as well. So we'll be following up on that.
So what do we tell people that ask us now? What are you going to do?
We're working to get clarification on what we can. We're working to get clarification on what guidance we can provide. It's our read of the code that the city has specifically addressed dogs and birds, but the contract also speaks to impounding of cats, and so we're going to follow up with the Humane Society so that we can provide customers with a clear answer on what they can do. It's something that we think that the Humane Society may be able to help us with taking animals that get spayed or neutered and removed.
Okay.
Okay. Councilor Henry, other reports, announcements, or questions?
None for me at this time, thank you.
Councilor Boersma?
None for me either, thanks.
Councilor Hicks?
No questions.
Deputy Mayor Strimler?
I have some questions, I guess. What is the city ordinances on chickens in town?
So livestock.
Are they allowed, or what?
I'd have to look up the ordinance real quick.
Livestock is not allowed.
Yeah.
We had a council member in the past tried to bring an ordinance before the council, but it didn't get support.
What was that? What was the ordinance for? To approve it or not to approve it?
To allow it.
Right.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Deputy Mayor Strimler, just for reference, it's the one in between the dogs and the birds is chapter 6.08. That's
6.08
of the municipal code governs livestock and poultry and basically prohibits them with some limited exceptions. Sorry, I was just looking at Title VI animals earlier today for the feral cat issue, and That's outside the scope of the Humane Society, though, too.
Okay. The property on the corner of YVH and 241, the southwest corner, that'd be across from that fruit packing place. That's in the city limits also, isn't it? I believe it is. City limits continues out east a ways of that.
It may be. Let me take a look at. On the east side of YVH at 240.
On the west, yes, south side of YVH, it'd be just south of the railroad tracks, and on the east side, or excuse me, the west side of 241.
That's right near the edge. I'm happy to try to look that up and confirm, but if it is in the city, what is the concern?
Okay, they got a fruit stand there every day. It's a house, but then there's a fruit stand there every day. There's a pen beside on the north side of the house. It probably got 30 chickens in it, approximately 20 to 30 chickens. Last week, I was waiting for the stoplight, and I noticed there were 3 chickens out on 241. There were 20 to 30 chickens in the pen. There were other chickens walking around the fruit stand. And then there was a young boy, probably around 6 or 7 years old, in the chicken pen playing in the dirt. And I'm thinking, that can't be good healthy conditions. And is that allowed around the fruit stand like that?
So the clerk is showing a map online for the council. I'm not sure if it's visible for all the council members. If you can zoom out a little bit. Sorry, that's a little too close. I want to make sure we're in the right area. Let's pull out a little further. So you see there is the Spec Motors. There's some farmland to the east. So generally speaking, I'm going to step away from my desk to take a look at the planning map I have behind me.
Yeah, it'd be southwest of Spec Motors a ways, because it's west of 241 and on the south side of the tracks.
So west of Spec Motors and west of 241, but this area here where you'll see, for example, is that Jackie is kind of circling around that large parcel there. Is that the one you're referring to?
I can't get that on my computer. Okay. But it's across the street from what used to be Andreas Roberts.
Yeah, this is an old photo from 2010. So let's go back to the map. If it's that area west, we'll have code enforcement follow up on that. If it's that area south of the railroad tracks, west of 241, that is inside the city limits. The area north of the railroad tracks, however, is outside the city limits. So
correct. Yes.
Yeah.
That sounds I knew north of the tracks was outside, but south of the tracks, I always was of the impression it was in the city. But yeah, if you could follow up on that, because they have a lot of chicken. It's my understanding they sell chickens.
Okay. Yeah. If that's in the city, and they've got a chicken pens there, that's probably not going to be okay. And fruit stands, there is an ordinance governing fruit stands, and we'd need to make sure that they're complying with those provisions as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Up next, Councilor Restucci.
No comments, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And none from me. Okay. Our next agenda item is going to be our upcoming council meetings. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. We're working on some adjustments to the budget, actually based in large part on the actions you took this evening to make some changes in expenditures. We'll incorporate those into a budget amendment. We'll have the 2020 ad valorem ordinance reading or adoption. This would be where you would have the discussion that council requested this a little earlier this evening during the public hearing related to the levy factor. We are working on an agreement and researching with MRSC. We may have ready by next meeting to look at signing up with their small works roster. It's a far larger pool of vendors to be able to work with. So Director Official will be reporting on that. From the planning arena, we have a bit of a cleanup on a rezone. Council may recall that last year, K&D Manufacturing purchased several parcels north of YVH, not too far from the Law and Justice Center on the north side of the road. They are building new facility, new manufacturing facility there. They're actually relocating to Sunnyside from the Prosser area, and they're bringing quite a few new jobs with that construction project. But in going through the underlying materials, it was discovered that there's a segment of underlying parcel that, for whatever reason, was not rezoned when the rest of the parcels had been rezoned years ago. And so we need to get that cleaned up. So we'll be doing that. And then lastly, at this point, we have a request for an executive session from the real estate agent that represents the city and some of our property transactions. And so requesting an executive session to discuss pricing on a potential lease agreement. And with that, most of the rest of the year is largely focused on budget and cleanup of agreements. We have begun bargaining starting the bargaining process with the Teamsters on our two remaining bargaining agreements. So trying to get all of those in before the end of the year.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Up next, we have our items from City Manager and Department Heads.
All right, thank you, sir. So I'll start with a COVID-19 pandemic update and then just a handful of some various public safety related updates. I wanted to let council and residents know that Yakima County has now reported 12,544 COVID-19 cases and 241 deaths. We currently have only 7 residents hospitalized. Nationally, officials are reporting about 8 million cases and 220,000 deaths. We know this is a stressful time for many in the community. We've seen that both economically and emotionally. But we have been also taking some steps to try to mitigate those issues. So I wanted to share that as of now, the Yakima County Development Association reports that well over 100 Sunnyside small businesses have applied for our City Cares assistance grants. And YCDA will be back here in the community on October 13th and October 16th this week from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. at our community center to meet with small businesses who may need any help in applying for the grants. These meetings are by appointment, and so eligible businesses are urged to call 509-575-1140 to schedule a time. And just a reminder, this is a program enacted by the City Council using our CARES relief funds to award up to $250,000 total in grants to small businesses with 15 or fewer employees who are in Sunnyside and who've been affected by the COVID pandemic. Council members have also expressed concern about community members' ability to make their utility payments. We have just over 4,000 utility customers. And before the pandemic, we routinely had about 60 customers a month who would have been subject to shut off of one of their utilities like water due to overdue payments. And the pandemic has had an impact. That figure rose in April to 108 customers and peaked in August at 315 customers before dropping last month significantly to just back down to 247. Now this means that at least more than 92% of our utility customers have been able to keep paying on time. But we are taking steps to help our residential and business customers who might be worried about paying their utility bills. Since March, pursuant to orders from the state and from the council, we have halted water, sewer, and garbage shutoffs due to non-payment. We have waived late fees. We are waiving all late fees for utility bills until the declaration of emergency ends. This was also an action taken by council in its order. And then finally, the city has offered customers a payment arrangement program since June. And this was also mandated by the state and city council's orders. Staff have been conducting an audit to bring some of our utility counts more current. As part of that process, recently 46 garbage customers and 35 water customers received correction adjustments to their bills. Some received credits, others we found were undercharged, so we're correcting that. We will work with customers who are experiencing any hardships from the COVID-19 pandemic to establish payment plans so that you can spread out your payments over a longer period of time, up to a full year. If you need help with utility bills, please contact customer service either by email or by calling the city at 509-837-3782. If you need broader utilities assistance, you can also dial 211, and that service can help to connect you with programs in the area that help with financial aid.
Mr. Mayor?
Sorry, go ahead.
I'd like to ask the manager a question.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I received a complaint from a citizen in regards to that whole billing issue, in which she spoke to the people in Utah. They informed her that if she didn't make her payments by the end of the month, they were going to shut off her water. So I want to make sure we're getting that message out, Mr. City Manager.
No, thank you. That is very concerning because our communication and information on our website and what we've tried to do for our customers is provide a consistent message since the beginning that we are not shutting off water. We are not issuing late fees. So if the service provider is providing incorrect information, I'll work with the finance team first thing tomorrow and make sure we get that corrected.
Thank you, sir. I assured her of what you said this evening, but I wanted to make sure that we make sure our vendor knows our policy.
Absolutely. In the arena of public safety, just wanted to kind of make sure folks are aware, the National Weather Service in Pendleton just issued a high wind watch within Yakima County for Tuesday, tomorrow afternoon into the evening with west-southwesterly winds of 30 to 40 miles per hour and gusting up to 50 to 60 miles an hour. The strongest winds are actually forecast to kind of hit eastern Yakima County and areas with higher terrain. So if you're up on the hilltop or something, it could be a little worse. Residents are certainly encouraged to try to secure any loose items they have outdoors. Hopefully it's not too severe, but winds can get wicked sometimes. Also wanted to let council know, I started monitoring a new lawsuit which was filed against the state of Washington, State Department of Licensing. The lawsuit is arguing that suspending driver licenses for non-payment of traffic fines, they're alleging that is unconstitutional. And briefly summarizing the argument, they're looking at it as a matter of economic inequity. And I am aware that a significant portion of the caseload in our municipal court does involve such traffic matters and license suspensions. So I'll be watching and reporting back to council as that case progresses. And with that, that's the last update I have. With that, I'll start turning it over to the department heads. And let's see who's all unmuted at the moment. It looks like I'll start with Police Chief Escalera. Maybe. Sorry, Chief.
There you are. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Oh, there you are. Oh, very good. Well, good evening, everybody. I don't have a whole lot, but I did want to talk a little bit about some of the alarming things that we're facing at the moment. We've been extremely busy. Our call volume has been very high. We are also experiencing our share of drive-by shootings again, so things are starting to change out here in the So we've handled probably 3-4 shots fired calls where cases or casings were recovered, and over the weekend, and we had some drive-by shootings, 3 or 4 of those prior to that in the last 2 weeks. So I'm just wanting to put the information out. We are working those to the best of our ability and what we have to work with. And so I just want people to remain diligent and just be safe out there. So just FYI, thank you.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Chief. Let's go to Chief Anderson.
Hello, I'm here. Good evening. I have a couple things. I thought I'd update everybody on the engine. The engine was purchased in the sales agreement, the offer for $229,000. The seller agreed to make a few concessions for us, and that included basically replace a warranty repair, replace the air conditioner compressor. They're going to send it to Pierce for a new DOT inspection and annual sticker. They're going to also do a 2020 pump test for us. They are going to do a new PM on it, and then they are going to haul it to Sunnyside for us. So once all that's completed, we expect it to be here. That's probably a savings there, probably $3,500, maybe $4,000. So we were really happy that they agreed to all that. Also, we had there may be, as some may have heard, we have one of our volunteers had tested positive for the COVID virus a little over a week ago, believed to have caught it from a family member. When we learned of it, we were able to send our entire shift after the person had worked a 24-hour shift here. We were able to send the entire shift for rapid testing on Monday, and then they had follow-up testing on Wednesday. Only one developed symptoms, but all of them were negative. We left the one person that had symptoms off duty for 2 shifts, and then has had now a third negative. So we'll be returning back to their normal duty. And then as far as I wasn't able to speak up during the council members' reports, as far as the residency program goes, we are the steps that we are at now is I had to reach out after speaking with the building official in the city. I had to reach out to the architect, so they are now going to give us some detailed plans for the HVAC and the electrical. Once those plans are in, then are received here, then we'll submit them to the city as part of the permitting process. And other than that, I think that's about it. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Council's aware that Finance Director Alba has been out on medical leave recovering from an injury and surgery, but she has called in for the meeting tonight. So I did want to invite her to give an update if she has anything.
Good evening. It's nice to hear voices that I'm familiar with besides the 3 people that live in my home. I'm homebound and I feel like I'm helpless like a child, basically can't do anything. But I did want to give you an update that Delilah will also be out this week. So we're running very slim in finance department. We have one last portion of our audit to be completed, the accountability audit. At my request, the the auditor has moved that to start November 2nd and should conclude probably November 12th. There are several documents that need to be pulled. There's a big, long kind of laundry list of things to do. I have a doctor appointment on October 20th where I'm hoping that I can be back to work at least a minimum 4 hours a day, and then can start getting that process going for the auditor. But I am monitoring emails and doing as much as I can with one hand, which I've never typed so slow since I was in 9th grade. And that's all I have to report.
Oh, thank you very much. We look forward to your return. And then Public Works Director Fisher.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Casey. I have a couple items. So the electric vehicle charging stations, currently working with the Port of Sunnyside, they actually had contributed $1,500 to that project. So they're going to do an in-kind contribution of getting bids for contractors to get the ADA ramps and the approach ramp from the curb to the pathway where the EV stations would be located. Once they get the ramps in, we'll get the paint down. Signs are on order. They should be here shortly. Then we'll be up and running. I'm sure most of you have noticed the bridge has been painted where their stack house where the graffiti had happened. My crew attempted to remove the graffiti to no avail. You could still see where it was. So what they did is they went down and they found paint that was very similar in color to the existing concrete, and basically painted the inside of the bridge rails on both sides. So if it gets tagged again, we'll just come back in with the same color paint. We'll just continue to paint over it. Seems like the best method. And then one more thing, Mark kind of talked about some activities going on at the community center. Tomorrow, Second Harvest will be there again in the morning from, I think there are events from 10 to 12 at the community center. They'll actually mow in about 9 o'clock. Expect a lot of cars. They will be bringing more. They're working with the National Guard. They're the ones that come in and are helping them kind of organize and do the traffic control. So since we had some issues last time with backed up traffic, we decided, I spoke with the director there at Second Harvest, and they decided to bring more guardsmen in to help mitigate the traffic issues. So hopefully it's not as backed up as it was at the last event. And that's all I have.
All right. And Clerk Renteria, any updates?
Nothing for me.
All righty, thank you. I'm not sure, Mr. Shuttleworth, since you're still on the call, do you have any updates from any further items from planning that you want to share?
No, sir.
All righty, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That concludes the department head updates.
Okay, thank you, everyone. There being no further business to come before council, and without objection, I adjourn this meeting at 8:08 p.m. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
everyone.
Mr. Mayor, council,
Good
thank you.
evening.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.